Hello everybody and welcome to coverage of the second practice session for the NTT INDYCAR series here at Mid-Ohio. The green light is on and welcome to delayed coverage as we now welcome in our commentators from Fox Sports. So Joseph Newgarden now just circulating out there on the field. And fingers crossed it's going to be for an interesting and close weekend of action. And hopefully we're going to be finished the session as practice sessions go. Testing the radio, testing the action as well. Alexander Rossi continuing on. And Newgarden still looking strong. So this is delayed coverage of our Mid-Ohio Practice 2 session.
Welcome back to Mid-Ohio. Cars out on track. We ride on board with Joseph Newgarden, fourth fastest yesterday. In the familiar PPG liveries, Penske Chevrolet. Let's take a moment to run through some of the liveries. Actually, we've got a number of new liveries this weekend. There's the Honda of Kyle Kirkwood. More Honda than we've ever seen on an Indy car.
Never not funny. Honda, I think, is going to end up being a drinking game for some of the viewers at home. Every time we get that phrase out, Kirkwood enjoys saying it as well in his interviews so far this weekend.
Based on the original F1 Honda from 1964 and 65, the RA271 and the RA272. Driven originally by Ronnie Buckman and Richie Ginther, so a proud American Honda heritage. Alex Palou, our championship leader, has a new livery this weekend, OpenAI, in the beautiful matte black with the blue rear wing.
I gotta say that, you know, with everything AI is capable of and all the pictures and videos that are generated by AI now, I would have thought for a slightly more exciting livery from an AI company, if I'm honest. It's just a black car with white stickers.
I don't even know if I'm looking at a real picture right now.
Oh, touche.
Oh, very nice.
This entire broadcast,
wow,
is AI generated. Are we even here?
Sometimes I wonder.
Easily the best livery in the history of motorsport.
Your unbiased opinion?
My unbiased opinion. The Fox Sports livery on Marcus Ericsson. The number 28 this weekend.
Big change for Ericsson on the 28 stand. New engineer, new race engineer on this program. Olivier Boisson being moved to a R&D role within the team. Dave Seifert stepping up to run Marcus from here on out, looking for a little bit of a shakeup for a team that's shown some speed but don't really have the results yet so far this year.
Yeah, Marcus outside the top 20 in points at the moment. Kevin Simpson returns to the Journey Rewards livery. I love that livery.
I do, especially the rear wing as we see tails away shot there, the cha-ching across the rear wing. I wonder why they don't put that on the upper elements on the front.
It's just so instantly recognizable.
And it's got a very early 90s F1 sort of vibe to it.
Yeah, it's like the Damon Hill Brabham.
Yeah.
From, what was it, 92? Graham Rahal back in the third livery for his home race here in Mid-Ohio.
Drivers jockeying for position around here. This always a common theme at Mid-Ohio. The all-start finish line is just after this next corner here, after turn 9 and the run to turn 10. That's where the lap time starts and stops, and you're trying to get a little bit of a gap. It's so hard to do with a 2.2 mile circuit and 27 cars on track.
There is that fifth third bank livery, resplendent in blue, white, and green.
The hometown hero won this race back in 2015 from Oh,
someone's been off, and it's Kiffin.
Taking a journey through the gravel trap. And this is where it gets dicey. All the gravel and rocks coming back onto the track. He'll be careful to try to stay offline as best he can. Let's take another look.
Risk versus journey rewards. Yeah, just sliding off down there. It's proven to be very tricky, that newly profiled turn 4, mainly because there's a bump as you enter the braking zone, which has caught a lot of drivers unawares this weekend.
Pump on the entry, then lower grip. If you go slightly offline, as we ride on board now, thanks to Mission Foods with Christian Lundgaard. McLaren car. Oh, driving through. Oh, he's picking up all the rocks coming off of Kiffin Simpson in front of him. You can. That's such an interesting thing to be able to hear that. Bit unnerving from inside the cockpit.
You just hear the rocks rattling through the car as they dropped off Kiffin Simpson's Ganassi. Kiffin's having a really good run of things at the moment, steadily making his way up through the field. Simpson actually second most positions gained over the last 4 races. He's made up 30 spots from his qualifying positions in the last 4 races. So racing really, really well and getting some great results. Look back to Detroit, he was the highest placed Ganassi driver.
Well, and you just think about what could have been at the Indy GP as well. Had those mechanical issues before things even got going there. But Kiffin Simpson, you know, you could say in the first year was, you know, generally high teens, early 20s on finishing position. Now he's mid-teens to top 10s.
Sorry, D-Bell, you see Ferrucci there just trying to, not wanting to play this track position game, locking up, going into 6th, nearly getting into the side of Will Power.
I think Will Power demonstrated at Detroit and Road America that he wants breathing room. Anybody in front of him?
Yeah.
And maybe Ferrucci's like, you know, I've seen some of those highlights. I'm going to lay out here. Let Will be Will.
He's also demonstrated he's not afraid to brake a little bit later than the average driver.
We were looking at the purple car of Felix Rosenquist this weekend, sponsored by Ozzy's Boneyard, Ozzy Osbourne's Sirius XM station. Of course, celebrating the fact that tonight in Birmingham, in the United Kingdom, at Villa Park, home to Aston Villa Football Club, Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath will play their last ever gig. What's your favorite Black Sabbath song, guys?
I don't know. Ozzy, I mean, Crazy Train for me. It almost looks like an homage to Will Power and his Indy 500 win on the front wing, but I think that's Ozzy.
I'm a War Pigs fan. That's my favorite Sabbath song. It's a great song. So we salute Ozzy, Tommy Iommi, the whole band. An amazing career, and the lineup that they've got for that gig tonight is absolutely stellar. The support acts are headliners in and of their own right, the likes of Metallica, and they've aligned, you know, some of the greatest guitarists of all time to play with the band tonight. Nuno Betancourt from Extreme is going to play with them. It's yeah, it's going to be an amazing, quite a weekend of incredible gigs taking place back in the UK. Lundgaard to the top of the times, Foster. P2. Award is third from Power, Simpson, and Siegel. So
replay here, Santino Ferrucci just,
yikes! Wow.
Yeah, you just got to be patient, man. Like, it's, everybody is doing the same thing. I get it's frustrating, but you're just putting your and everyone else's cars at risk trying to do that.
This was ill-advised. That was a really bad idea. Now, IndyCar's told us they don't police practice, but that would be a good reason to start thinking about it, because that was incredibly dangerous.
Yeah, the thing is, until something goes wrong, he's probably, if IndyCar doesn't step in, it's going to take an incident before you calm down that behavior.
That's a step too far for me.
I completely agree.
I mean, that's a blind entry. Newgarden is just thinking about gapping in front. He doesn't know Santino's firing. That's a 100-mile-an-hour plus closing differential. Catastrophic if that goes wrong, and it almost did.
Be interesting to know if that, you know, if Santino was on a push lap or if he was just frustrated with the lap before, and that was his.
Or did he not realize? Did he think he had cleared the last car and didn't know somebody was there?
I'm gonna go based on the fact he blew by 3 cars right before that. That wasn't necessarily his thought process.
Maybe not, but. Either way,
he proved earlier, you know, we've already seen him nearly run into Power, trying to, he just doesn't want to play these games of gapping, which
I don't know if it's a game, it's just a process. He didn't want to play the process.
Fair.
Nobody's playing games with him.
No, sorry, I didn't mean like that. You're right.
It's a process, and I just think that, you know, Santino's having a heck of a run mid-stretch, but getting into the back of Newgarden's gearbox at over 100-mile-an-hour closing rate
in practice
would end his season or maybe his career. So you got to think big picture, and that was too much.
Ill-advised, as you say. So award to the top from Lundgaard, McLaughlin third, and we ride on board with Scott McLaughlin having a little wave at Felix Rosenquist. So tough to find space around this track. It is only just over 2 miles in length, incredibly narrow. So easy to find drivers out there.
And there's no real long straights either. That's part of the challenge here, is when you're trying to stay out of the way. As we take a look at Louis Foster's machine here, the pole sitter last time out in Road America. But yeah, there's not enough room to kind of get out of the way. But let's hear a little bit more about Louis Foster.
Well, he's only 16th quick yesterday, but that's because they weren't very sorted on the soft tire. Actually felt pretty good when I talked to the team this morning on the harder compound. He was 3rd quick, and you see top 5 in the early going on the hard compound. A lot of experience here at this track. He is a rookie. It's all new in the IndyCar, but he finished 1st and 2nd in USF Pro 2000 on the way to a championship. Won a championship in Indy Next, finished 1st and 2nd in his 2 races here in that series. So he's strong here, trying to adapt to IndyCar. Question I have for you, Hinch, is, okay, you see you're not good, you're not where you want to be on the softs. Can you learn what you need for qualifying on the harder compound today to transfer over to qualifying? Because that's critical for track position.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's one of the things all these teams and drivers are battling with. You know, you had that run on the softs yesterday. You would have taken account for what sort of balance change there was. So the short answer is sort of. You know, if you had a good read of whether you picked up more front grip or relative or rear grip relative when you put the softs on yesterday, you can kind of factor that in with the balance that you're experiencing today on the hards. But the other thing to remember, T-Bell, is right now the track time's at 102. When we were in practice yesterday, it was at 120. That's a big swing in temperature, and we know this track historically can be quite different as that temperature changes.
Kevin, I'm going to answer your question definitively with a hard no. There is way too big of a disparity right now between the black and the red tire here this weekend. Everybody's struggling with the balance of their car. All of the issues you saw in that highlights package, 100% on the black tire. Drivers losing the back end. There's not enough time, not enough laps, not enough tires to really develop your quali car on the black tire at all right now. It's just too big of a difference. You need to be testing on reds and setting up on reds. So I think it's going to be, if Louis Foster feels like he's in a bit of a hole, tough to dig out of on short time.
Devlin DiFrancesco back in the EV Tech livery this weekend. Blue, green and white, not to be confused with Graham Rahal's blue, green and white car.
So let's jump back to that real quick, because that brings up an interesting question. If you are someone like Louis Foster, who last week in Road America, last race in Road America, did 2 new sets of reds in Q1 to progress into Q2. What's stopping you, if you're struggling on reds right now, from doing a new set right now and then doing used and new in Q1, just so you've got a little bit of a better handle on what the balance is on those softs?
It's a good question. I think the limiting factor is you don't want to be red poor for the race. You think the race is going to be a red race, every single lap that you put on a tire in practice is one less lap that you have in the race. And but this is where we get into the sacrifice decisions of every setup change, of every decision for drivers and engineers. There's no free lunch. You do one thing, it comes at the expense of another.
And qualifying here is so crucial. This might be one of the tracks you'd be willing to kind of roll that dice a little bit more.
We saw a number of the drivers taking different philosophies on their runs yesterday. We reckon there was about 3 laps in the tire. Some drivers deciding to push on all 3. Some drivers pushing. I think Newgarden pushed on his first, backed off on his second, then pushed on his third. Do you think we're going to see a differentiation in how those runs are made, or will everybody align by the end of this session into what is the optimum strategy to run in qualifying?
I think optimum depends on the car and the setup, to be honest. I don't think there's going to be one universal answer.
Well, I don't think you can afford to run fuel for a chill lap and then a push lap again. That just makes the car heavier, and I think you're going to want to nail that optimal one. It's going to be about 1 lap, not about 2 attempts on the same set of tires in the same outing. That's how close the margins will be.
As you were saying yesterday, chug all the milk in one go.
Carl Cookred on board now as well, running 12th fastest on a 106.657, improving the times at the moment as well. to awards to the top. Paloma Lucas, Stingray Rob also looking quite strong to begin with here as well. Scott Dixon around with now. More improvements coming as the session goes on.
Next one just off of 2 here now.
Riding on board with Colton Herter at Mid-Ohio as the second half of the 2025 NTT IndyCar Series begins. After this weekend, only 2 road courses remain on the calendar for the rest of the season. 1 street race and 4 oval races, 2 of them in Iowa, Milwaukee and Nashville to conclude the season. It's going to come thick and fast, isn't it, these last few races? 5 in the next 4 weeks. The second half of the season over in 2 calendar months.
And it's a huge opportunity for some of these teams and drivers to get on a momentum roll. You know, if you have a bad start to this stretch here this weekend at Mid-Ohio, it can really throw you off. It can get you out of that rhythm, can make you start trying too hard as a team, and that kind of perpetuates more mistakes. But conversely, as we take a look here at Christian Lundgaard having that bump, he hit that bump into 4 and just going a little bit wide and dropping wheels. But I was going to say, yeah, conversely, a strong result here can get that momentum on your side, get that confidence up, and really start a great run over these next 4 races.
Not quite as pronounced an issue at 4 as other people have had, but that bump is clearly creating issues for everybody down there. Right in the middle of the brake zone, you hit that hump, just unsettles the rear.
Yeah, in this case, he had a little bit of a bobble, but because the banking's been reprofiled in that corner, in the old days, he would have had no problem keeping his race car on the track because you'd slide up and grab the banking almost like a little bobble on an oval. But now with the reprofiled turn 4 this year, it's a much flatter corner, and you are still entering downhill, and that momentum can take you off. And speaking of what you said earlier about momentum, James, I agree. A lot of drivers looking for progress, especially in a season where you've only had 2 winners. I think what that does is it puts an even greater emphasis, not just on momentum, but a pop result for so many drivers. And I think that's mentally what goes on right now in this championship, is the drivers are, these guys are warriors, and they're not thinking about momentum. They're thinking, oh my gosh, there's only 2 drivers to win, the spotlight on just 2. I need the spotlight to be on me, and that's not going to come with a top 10 or a top 5. I need a podium, or I need a win. And this guy right here, Christian Rasmussen, got his first podium at Gateway. Nice job, and that's exactly what you need as a young driver looking to secure your future.
Moments ago, getting a replay here of Rasmussen slowing through 4, slowing up Schwartzman behind him. Stars and stripes on the ECR cars this weekend for the 4th of July celebrations. And Lundgaard, meanwhile, has popped to the top on a 1 minute 5.5529. That's a little close. It's more than close. It's contact.
Hey, if they're not going to police practice, we will. That's what the drivers say.
You saw the big unwinding of the wheel mid-corner for Schwartzman, just sort of...
Yes, and a slowdown,
showing
and a brake
his
check.
Displeasure for Rasmussen, kind of getting out of the throttle when he was on a hot lap.
Down to Georgia.
I just wanted to update on Marcus Ericsson, who is also catching momentum this weekend, but up until about 10 minutes ago, he had only done 1 lap. So I went to check in, talked with the team. He's now up to 5 laps, with his 3rd lap being his fastest so far. And they said, we were just waiting for conditions to get just about right. Marcus was incredibly comfortable yesterday, so we were just waiting for those conditions to get where we want to be, but all things good. So in a sense, it's actually a good thing that they've turned less laps, because that means that they are comfortable. But Ericsson feeling good. His teammate Kyle Kirkwood right in front of him. They now sit 6th and 7th, but their other teammate Colton Herta all the way down in the 27th position, who's turned 9 laps. So I'm going to get an update for you on what's going on with the 26 car.
Thank you, Georgia. Not a great day for ECR so far either. 25th and 26th, 8 laps on the board apiece for Rasmussen and Rossi.
Yeah, not historically a great track for that squad either. So I know they struggled a little bit in Road America, found some things overnight, Saturday to Sunday, that Rossi said really brought the car alive for the race. Had good pace in the race, went a little bit off strategy, was running up in the top 5 for a while. The yellows didn't quite play out for him to get the result he would have wanted. But yeah, interesting that Herta's all the way down there in P27. He's got 9 laps completed. It's not like he hasn't been running.
And as we're saying, ECR are struggling. Rossi jumps up to 16th, and Rasmussen jumps up to 4th.
We talk about setup of the race cars for both race and qualifying. One thing that's happened a lot overnight is the track has improved tremendously. These guys are over a second quicker than they were on the black tire in yesterday's practice. Granted, it was hotter. The track's a little more ideal. You talked about this, James, but it's also rubbered in a lot. So you also have to be really careful, I think, on Friday night in terms of post-practice setup decisions, that you're not chasing the track too much, because the track might come back into your ideal setup window.
That's a big thing here at tracks that have big, what we call track evolution. And that's, you know, as the grip comes up over the weekend, lots of different series here from all the junior categories running this weekend. The track evolves a lot. The pace comes down quite a bit. And it's easy to start chasing the wrong issue after Friday's first practice. And you're right, it's small changes overnight, reevaluate in the morning, and then see what kind of swings you have to take for qualifying.
Did ECR put the Stars and Stripes on the wrong car?
Is it only on the one car?
It's only on Rasmussen's, not on Rossi's. I'm kind of wondering if... Oh, wow.
Huge save.
Dude. Dude.
Not the first time we've seen that in turn 1 this weekend. Man, that was big.
145 miles an hour at the exit as Rossi was laying heavy into that Chevy Power. But just like we saw from Jacob Abel yesterday, you climb that exit curve and you've got so much downforce compressing the back of the car. Let's look.
Tremendous reactions from Alexander Rossi. A little too much speed through there. The rear starts to go over onto the gravel, well, the dirt, really, and holds it.
I love the left front leaving skid marks as it bounced because it was up in the air. Man, that was so close to just hooking drivers left into that wall.
Let me tell you, the most important thing as a driver in a moment like that is to keep looking straight up the racetrack with your eyes. Your eyes dictate so much of what your hands and feet are going to do in terms of decision making. Younger drivers typically tend to look at the wall that they might hit on a driver's left or something on the right. Alexander Rossi's a pilot. It reminds me a lot of a crosswind landing, and you got to just stay focused on the runway. And Rossi did that. Brilliant piece of car control to save it. There's another pilot, his team owner, Ed Carpenter. The two of them understand the power of eyes high and looking way down the track.
Even with that moment, Rossi now up to 12th. His teammate Rasmussen up to 2nd. ECR starting to turn it on. Guys, Lundgaard's time on the black tire, a 105.5, is only 0.2 of a second away from last year's pole time on the soft. What is making the difference this year? Why is the track so much faster? Is it tires? Is it the fact that the new asphalt has kind of bedded itself in? What is the difference?
I don't think the track's faster. I'd argue it's probably slower because pavement slows down with every year. I think you've got more hybrid power on offer this year that's available for deployment. Cars evolve year over year, and it's probably mostly the lessons learned since this was the 1-year anniversary of the hybrid being introduced. That's how much the teams have evolved in understanding how to set the car up and how to use the hybrid system over the course of a lap.
Riding on board with Nolan Siegel, jumps up to 4th place.
Take a quick replay back. This is up through Dr. Rally. Ooh,
my word.
that is, it's a It's a flat-out section of racetrack, but it is only just flat out. And if your tires are starting to wear, you can have moments like that, especially in the race on heavy fuel. But a nice catch there from Nolan.
Oh, big crash. Someone's gone off. That is Marcus Ericsson in the 28 and front wing damaged down there in the gravel. Marcus Ericsson. And that's the final turn. I think he's probably just down in front of our commentary position, and he is beached down there in the gravel.
Looks like a pretty big front end impact.
So let's see what happens. Yeah, rear snaps out on him, catches it, but almost catches it too well.
Does the overcorrection. It's such an easy thing to do with the steering wheel loaded up. Again, no power steering in an IndyCar, and as it steps out on you, the weight of that wheel is so much. Getting the right amount of correction sometimes can be a huge challenge. And for a driver that was looking for a strong weekend, sitting fourth in the time charts right now after being quite quick yesterday too, this is a huge, huge blow.
Georgia was telling us just moments ago how confident he and the whole team were, given their performances yesterday and the progression that they were making into today. That confidence, though, comes with its own dangers. A snap, too good a catch, and ultimately in the barrier, and his morning is over. Marcus Ericsson in the barriers, in the gravel, and out. Safety crew taking Marcus Ericsson's car away, but big repair jobs to be done on the barrier down there at the final corner here at Mid-Ohio, under a red flag at the moment as the tractor pulls in to help with the rebuild job on the tire barrier.
Big frontal impact for Marcus Ericsson there. There is a couple of rows of tires, but if you look right here at the Armco, you can also see that sort of permanent mark that the 28 left there where the nose got through the tires and into the steel Armco as well. I don't think that'll require repairs necessarily right now, but it's a permanent tattoo on the facility.
So another look as you get the slide, you get the snap, the overcorrection, and we just saw the dent in the Armco created by the ferocity of the impact of Ericsson sending his Andretti into the barriers.
This is the exact kind of accident that nose cone is designed to address, to dissipate the energy, and exactly what the Hans device was designed to manage in terms of the driver's head movement forward on a sudden deceleration frontal impact.
Still under red then, and the barrier getting its repairs. So we'll be back to Mid-Ohio for more practice shortly. Well, the barrier appears to be repaired. Everybody moving off, and that is a speedy repair to the barriers down at turn 13. Lundgaard and Rasmussen, the fastest drivers so far from Joseph Newgarden, but Joseph Newgarden's teammate Will Power had a bit of an off.
Once again in turn 1, we've seen many incidents here, just as we have down in turn 4, and in the last corner. Just pushes wide, though. Doesn't have the big snap that we saw out of some of the other drivers having issues in turn 1.
Decent chunk of carbon fiber came off there as well. You see a bit of red flick up behind the car as he runs over the dirt.
I went off in this corner one time. As we get a nice look at the onboard here, you're going to see Will Power get out of the throttle and just straighten up his hands. That's the high probability way. Once you know you're done, is to bail, not try to stay on the throttle. But I one time spun there. I was going 180 degrees backwards.
Wow.
At about 140 miles an hour. It ripped the steel floor off the bottom of the car, rolled it like a sardine can, and then took the entire front wing off backwards as it discarded itself.
Dude.
I didn't hit anything, but I destroyed the race car.
What car was it? What were you driving?
That was a Champ car, 2002.
Wow, man.
Yeah. Toyota Reynard.
Gnarly.
900 horsepower tends to overwhelm a rookie at days, at times.
Stingray going out on sticker blacks.
So yeah, this is just, again, we're 20 minutes left in the session. This is qualifying prep. So now after evaluating the changes from last night, teams will start to move to a new set of Firestones. Just try to get a new tire baseline. Like you said, T-Bell, certainly not apples to apples with what they're going to have on the softs once we get to qualifying, but you have to throw on a new set and at least try to evaluate some part of the balance.
And the key is, you know, the advantage is experience in these scenarios. Younger drivers like a Stingray Rob or Rasmussen, you know, you don't want to have the wrong confidence in your setup. You need to be mindful, if you're a veteran driver, of all of the red soft tire experience you've accumulated through the years, to be able to sort of guess and guide your engineers on setup, because you know you're going to pick up a ton of rear grip. So if your car's great on the blacks right now with this run, you might have too much understeer when it comes to quali, and that's the game, that's the struggle. James, you did it for years on the soft tire, especially with the McLaren team, where you guys were always wicked loose on the black tire, anticipating that big rear grip jump.
And that was usually the key there, right? Is we knew when you threw the softs on, you would pick up more rear grip relative to front, which shifts the balance that way. So you needed to have the car a bit on the edge, or in some cases a lot on the edge, and downright scary to drive on the hards before you threw on the softs for qualifying.
Now, you had this guy, Ferrucci, on your podcast this week, James, and you talked a lot with him about the difference in preference between him and his teammate in setup. And one of the ways the drivers can control that is in the cockpit.
Exactly right. We talk a lot about adjusting the bars. Your front and rear anti-roll bars are a tuning tool that drivers can use during practices, during qualifying, and during the race. You move that lever on the side, driver's right hand is going to adjust the front bar, and as the car rolls left to right, you see that T-bracket pivots, that red anti-roll bar is going to flex, but as you move that roll bar position, the blade changes position, goes from a softer position to a stiffer position. Same thing in the rear.
Yeah, you think about a kitchen knife at home, you might be able to flex it flat, but if you turn it up on its edge, there's no way it's going to bend. That's exactly how the roll bar works, is that blade rotates with adjustment. Question is, what does it do? Well, if you soften up the back of the race car with the rear roll bar, it allows the suspension to work independently more, absorb the bumps, and roll over more. It's better for tire grip back there. If you want a sharper handling car, something that's more pointy, you can stiffen up that rear roll bar and kind of add shoulder support to the back of the race car and try to sharpen up your balance.
Hats off, by the way, to our graphics team for all of those Dallara cutaway car segments that we've had so far this year. I learn something every weekend. I've always known the theory of the anti-roll bar, but I've never actually seen it in operation. That, for me, that's probably my favorite one of the season so far.
Yeah, I'd agree. The team did an incredible job as we take a look at Santino Ferrucci's leveled up season.
7 straight Indy 500 top 10 for him. He's had an amazing run of podiums, his first career podiums on road and street courses this season, and 4 straight top 5 finishes for Santino Ferrucci. Big shout, Casey, for doing this. And he's got the star and is seemingly unstoppable at the moment. His sort of qualifying form has not been fantastic. His race form has been incredible. He's made up 58 positions in the last 4 races. Conversely, so he's the best. The worst, Scott McLaughlin has lost 59 positions.
I know you worked on that research, Will. Who was second best?
Second best was Kiffin Simpson with a +30, Nolan Siegel with a +25, then Rasmussen and Armstrong on a +22.
So just in the last 4 races, Santino has passed 28 more cars.
Almost double than the number 2.
The next closest driver.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Incredible run. As we ride on board with Santino, I believe Marcus Ericsson is standing by.
Some work to do on the 28 car ahead of qualifying, but you did turn your fastest lap right before that. Was that just a matter of finding the limits ahead of qualifying?
Yeah, going a bit over the limit, I guess. So, yeah, very frustrating to, you know, we had a really good weekend. Yesterday was really good practice, and then again we had a really good practice going here, and I just got a bit of wheel spin there in the exit, and just snapped on me. And yeah, I'm hoping, you know, I went pretty straight in, so hopefully it's just front damage that we can fix. You know, it's going to be obviously not ideal for the guys. It's quite a bit of work, but hopefully it's only concentrated at the front of the car so we can get that sorted and get the car in the same feel like I've had in the practice sessions, because we've been really fast. The Fox Honda has been really good, so I'm still excited for qualifying. I think we can see that really good session.
How do you put it behind you ahead of qualifying?
It's been a tough season for me, so I've had to put a lot of things behind me, so it's all good. You know, I know I've been fast here all weekend, so he's got to go out and do that again this afternoon.
The confidence is up. That's Marcus Ericsson.
Confidence is up, and he's still 4th quickest. Field at the moment covered by 1.4 seconds, fastest Lundgaard to slowest Colton Herta.
It is interesting that Colton is still P27. He's got 11 laps logged. That's on the lower side, but not even the least number of laps turned. So some issues there with the 26 as you see the 28 crew now of Andretti Global going to work. And look, I've done much worse to a race car heading into a qualifying session. These teams are so equipped to get these things fixed up, buttoned up, exact same setup back on the car, providing Marcus was happy with how it was handling. And he should have full confidence that this thing will be exactly where he needs it when we get to qualifying this afternoon.
Well, you're going to need confidence in qualifying. If you look at the gap from P3, Joseph Newgarden, down to, say, Kyle Kirkwood in 12th, that's 9 positions covered by about a 10th and a half right now. So the tiniest little things are going to matter in qualifying with respect to making the top 12 and then ultimately the fast 6.
You're right on board with Joseph Newgarden, 17th in the championship. Doesn't just need a good second half of the year, needs a transformative second half of the year. It has been miserable in 2025 for Penske. As we go back on board with Colton Herta on the run down to turn 4, where moments ago he, like so many other drivers this weekend, with an issue over the bump, under braking, and through the gravel and back on again. And guys, you know, this is just practice. When they've got the soft tires on and they're at 10 tenths on the ragged edge at the absolute limit, how much more treacherous is that corner going to be?
I'll be honest, Will, I'm already thinking to the race. You got to remember, we start the race down in turn 4. They're going to be too wide going down there, and every one of these drivers will have been through a situation like what Colton Herta is dealing with right here on this replay, and knowing how much less grip there is
and
on the outside.
That's 4 as well.
Wow. Scotty Mack went off yesterday in turn 4 as well.
Clocking with the Odyssey battery machine this weekend. Let's take a look at what happened to him.
Over the bump.
You can see it so
just
clearly.
Goes.
Yeah, on that slow-mo was such a great shot there. You can just see how, again, any sort of vertical movement, vertical heave that you can see externally from inside the car, that feels like a massive movement.
What can you do to alleviate that? Is it about softening up the suspension, or you don't want to do that because it's literally one momentary part of the lap?
That's exactly right. To make that comfortable over that bump, you're sacrificing basically every other corner of the lap. So the drivers just have to kind of know to adjust, you know, their approach to that corner, maybe back up the brake zone a little bit so you don't have as much brake pressure on while you hit it.
I think that's it. It's going to be a brake pedal determined thing. You're going to squeeze hard initially, release a tiny bit of brake pressure, and then apply again once you get through it. It's a little bit like the brake zone at Laguna Seca for the corkscrew, where the car gets light and you have to reduce pressure. In this case, the bump is going to cause lockup and disruption. So I think it's left foot behavior is the only technique in your toolkit here to deal with it.
And James, to your point, when we're running 2, maybe 3 wide at the race start down there, you hit that bump, the car steps out on you, and that's immediate contact down there for the very first corner of the very first lap.
Yeah, you might take out 3 or 4 cars if you get it wrong.
Including yourself.
I'm sitting here as a driver. I would be praying that I qualify in an odd number and I get to start drivers right for this race, and you're on that preferred line, because anybody that's starting on the outside row is going to be, or outside column, I should say, they're going to be really thinking about how they enter the first corner of this race.
Going out in Q1 might not be such a bad thing. You can just sit at the back, watch it all unfold in front of you, and nip your way through. There is Scott McLaughlin back on pit lane, currently sitting 12th fastest. Lundgaard still the fastest driver of the morning on 1:05.5. We ride on board with Carl Kirkwood with a ghost car against Lundgaard ahead of us. Gaining.
Yeah, definitely strong through turn 2 there for Kirkwood. Able to roll a lot of mid-corner speed compared to Lundgaard. Lundgaard maybe a little bit better on traction out of the corner. Now let's see how they both handle turn 4.
Boy, Kirkwood looks good on the brakes.
So you can see still about 2 to 3 car lengths behind as he comes over turn 9 here. This is the end of the lap right here, alt start finish line. That time, Kirkwood is 7th at the moment.
So it was a 1:06.0, his best a 1:05.9.
As Palou
inevitably jumps to the top with a time which doesn't quite beat his pole time last year.
Hey guys, remember me?
Quite.
Imagine if you're Pato Award right now, and the guy that you battled to narrowly pull off the win yesterday just went 4/10 quicker on blacks than your best lap.
Look, the track's getting better with every lap.
I mean, or go back to Graham Rahal, a guy who came in here with huge optimism. Graham Rahal, 24th right now, former winner. Palou just went a second quicker than what Graham could pull off.
Also, Palou went off. That is a rarity. He don't see many mistakes from him.
He clocked the timing line coming through 10 and then goes off in 11. So looking for even a little bit more than the massive gap he already has on the field. But that's Alex Palou. And I just want to point out, Colton Herta did find some pace as well. He's jumped up into the top 5.
So Herta at 1:05.8 puts him half a second off Palou's time, but as James says, does put him back into a strong position. Robert Schwartzman now the slowest driver in the field at 1:06.6. Field still covered by 1.3 seconds.
This is where Palou went off on the last lap.
Little moment there down the hill at 12 as well, but hanging on to it.
Those hands just never seem to be in combat with the race car. They just seem to be linked, working together, not against each other. So many of these laps we've seen the drivers kind of fighting and hustling the race car. When you watch Palou's hands, it's a musician in sync with his instrument all the way around the track.
The circuit where he got his first taste of IndyCar. Palou, of course, a former race winner here. Yankees versus the Mets for Eastern on FS1 today. Don't miss that. Should be a great matchup. As Louis Foster jumps up to P3. The continually impressive rise of the rookie on pole last time at Road America. Mustachioed again this weekend.
He just wanted to match his profile picture there on the pylon.
That's it.
Here's a guy we haven't talked much about so far this weekend. It's Rinus VK for Dale Coyne Racing. He's had some incredible results this year. They've been very strong, but really struggling to get the pace out of this DCR car right now. He's down in 26th and second last on the field. A few tenths of a second, or about a tenth and a half off of his teammate Jacob Abel.
Had a nice solid run with a 10th place at Road America, 9th at St. Pete. That big 4th place result in Barber got everybody on the team super excited about what was to come. This circuit not too dissimilar to Barber Motorsports Park in terms of the elevation change, of course, a permanent road course. But VK right now sounded like quite a bit understeer there at the front end of the race car. You can hear those front tires howling through turns 5 and 6.
Scott Dixon jumps up to 7th. Felix Rosenquist has jumped up to 5th fastest on a 105.794.
We're thinking about doing that front camber. What do you think?
Yeah, probably a little less wing as well.
Copy that. Good job. We'll keep working at it.
Rosenquist, who finds himself 4th in the championship coming into this second half of the season. A brilliantly impressive start to the year.
So that's an interesting message between him and his engineer. Hey, we do that front camber change. You'd think that's probably adding front camber. That's kind of tipping the front tires in, can give you a little bit more front grip. But then he said also want to take out some from front wing. So that's a high speed and aerodynamic balance shift, too sharp in the front end and the high speed. So a bit of a disconnect between the high speed and the low speed, it seems like, for Felix.
Down to Kevin Lee.
So as we watch this session and we see so many and hear so many comments about hard to find a gap, and it feels very disjointed. Hinch, Townsend, as tracks and weekends go, is this one of the toughest ones to find a clean lap? How many drivers are we going to hear complaining during qualifying? I did not get my best lap, which usually leads to really entertaining racing because you're going to have a mixed up grid.
It's not as bad as, say, practice 2 at Detroit or St. Pete, which are shorter circuits in length. I think you really have to look at track length. This one sits almost exactly like Laguna Seca at 2.258. I think Laguna Seca is 2.248 miles. But here's the thing. I think no matter which track it is, road or street all season, everybody gets this kind of semi-private practice 1, 10 minutes, right? So you go overnight with this, okay, here's my mentality for practice 2, and you almost forget, oh yeah, it's all skate the entire time. So I think you start kind of frustrated early in practice 2 and have to recalibrate to the fact that everybody's on the track. What do you think, James?
Yeah, I think you're right. And then you go into qualifying and the groups are split again. So you're sort of bouncing around in how you're preparing and how many cars you're dealing with on the racetrack. But again, I mentioned it before, what's so tough about this one is there's so few straights to kind of pull off to the side, build yourself that gap. It's so easy to get in someone's way. So not only is it tough to find the gap, it's also very easy to get caught impeding at Mid-Ohio.
And then I guess factor in that, yes, we're going to have the split groups, but the potential for impeding, and what are we looking at
Red
here?
tires for
Red tires for Schwartzman. Guys on different strategies. So those who will go for the one push, those who will go for a push and then a cool down and then maybe a push again, trying to find their space on the track, trying to slow down through these final corners, while others are on maybe their only push lap of the entire session.
The hard part here, even when we get to qualifying and the field split, is the timing line is so horribly, I mean, they don't really have an option. I just mean it's horribly placed in terms of visibility. Look right here. Will Power can't see the car in front of him, then just comes into view right before the timing line. So everybody tends to stack up in the worst possible position because they have to, but it's a blind entry. Pretty sketchy. We saw it with Ferrucci, we saw it with Power earlier. These kind of last second, bold, decisive moves to try to get to that timing line and start your run cleanly.
So Schwartzman with the red tires only improves to a 106.6. That's barely any improvement at all over his hard tire run time. Still puts him 1.2 seconds off the ultimate time of Palou, 105.39. So work to do, massive work to do for Prema.
And about half a second off of his teammate, Callum Eilert, who's up there in 16th right now, sitting at a 106.1.
I'm looking at the track record, guys. Simon Pagenaud back in 2016 at a 103.8. I don't know if Palou's going to find 2 seconds or a second and a half, but might see them into the 104s.
As Herter again finds his way off track. Still 6th fastest.
Turn 9 there is such a tricky corner, and that's actually something that's pretty common. We haven't seen a lot of that so far in the 2 practice sessions, dropping wheels on the exit of 9, but you can see how blind it is. You're committing to the throttle before you can even see the exit, and it's important to get a good exit because that is where the alternate start-finish line is. So that's finishing the lap. The number of drivers that have been up on a lap and tossed it away by dropping wheels in the last corner of the lap. It's a rite of passage.
Nolan Siegel, that was almost a massive shunt.
Just catches the rears on exit of 4. Just here, catches a bit of dirt. That could have been huge.
I mean, there's no tires there. That's just, is there tires there? I guess there is a little bit of a tire barrier. That would have been just like Marcus Ericsson head on into a barrier with a very narrow tire stack.
Checkered flag is out.
Yep, and the session concludes as well here for the second practice session. We will be joining live coverage shortly of the qualifying session in 7 minutes time here on JB Motorsports after our delayed coverage has finished. Join us there now, you'll be redirected.